Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lord Rick of the Paranormal and Ghost Society, and your host of AngelOfThyNight Radio. And a lot of people have been wondering what I've been up to lately, like what kind of expeditions and adventures I've done, where I've been, my experiences. I still host AngelOfThyNight Radio, but I do it privately now. And this is one of these moments where I'm kind of doing a paranormal talk episode where I can discuss Showers Lake, California. Showers Lake was the last expedition I did when Sue came out here to visit. Sue belongs to our group. She liked some of the locations that we did and thought, hey, maybe I can come out and do some hiking and looking for Bigfoot with you and so forth. So I put together a few ghost towns, mines, mountainous areas, hikes, things like that, historic sites. Showers Lake we actually put that one together last on purpose. We actually put that one on a Friday, and it was to be the expedition of all expeditions during that 4 days straight of doing different investigations. Now, I have been up in the Showers Lake region a few times. I've worked with the region. And basically, what you do is you go through the Carson Pass, which has some of the largest and tallest mountains in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. You can park and you can go over Red Peak. Actually, it's Red Peaks to your right, and you got the ridge going to the peak. And you climb all the way up for over 1,000 feet, and you go over this ridge, and you go into this lake basin. And there's Mice Lake, Round Lake, Scotts Lake, Four Lakes, Lake Dardanelles, and then you have Showers Lake 5 miles from the Carson Pass. You can also hit Showers Lake from Echo Lake on the Pacific Crest Trail, from Southern Lake Tahoe. You can also visit Showers Lake coming from the Luther Pass. And we've investigated Bigfoot on the mountains that are found on the east side of the Luther Pass, and we have found evidence. I have done Mice Lake, Round Lake. I found Bigfoot evidence. I did Lake Dardanelles. I found Bigfoot evidence. So it's safe to say that in this lake basin, there is a healthy habitat of Bigfoot-like creatures. People are often skeptical because they're like, how can a creature like this exist? Well, it's very simple. Wherever there's water and at least some amount of wilderness, you're going to find these creatures. The Showers Lake area sits in a lake basin south of Lake Tahoe. It's one of the most beautiful lakes in southern Lake Tahoe. You have a bunch of lakes around Lake Tahoe and smaller tributaries. You got the Truckee River, which runs through various meadows, expanse meadows that surround these lakes. And I've already been to Lake Dardanelles. I've already been to Mice Lake. I've been to Round Lake. I still have yet to go to Four Lakes. I've been to Showers Lake. We're going to be going to Scotts Lake in a couple weeks. So there's a lot of lakes. There's berries growing. There is a lot of big game animal like deer that graze in the meadows. So it's very plausible to say this is a prime spot, hotspot, or prime area for Bigfoot activity. And of course, in prehistoric times when the Native Americans first came here, they were at war with these creatures. These creatures are a tribe. Whether you realize it or not, they are recognized as a tribe by the Native American people. And in the prehistoric times, these creatures would steal women, often stealing babies, for cannibalism. They were giants. They were the apex predator in the area. For some reason, they were in also Nevada, and they went up into the Sierras, and now they may remain elusive. Out of fear of man, because now man's the apex predator? I don't know. But anyways, Sue, my son Jared, Richard, and me, we went hiking. It's a 5-mile trek. We went in April, which, by the way, a week before, they had a huge snowstorm in the Sierras. So now with the additional, you had 4 feet of snow and an additional 3 feet of snow, you had 7 to 8 foot drifts. So when we arrived at the location and had to go up over Red Ridge, there was no trail, no switchbacks. We just had to climb through the snow and go up and over. Sue went back to the SUV or to the truck because honestly this is a very advanced track. You're going through over Red Peak, you have avalanche zones everywhere, you can't find the trail, there's no way to find the lake, it's a lake basin, so you have patches of woods and multiple lakes. And I had happened to just know that I had to go northwest to reach Showers Lake. So we really didn't know where we were, we didn't have no Pacific Crest Trail to follow or anything. That was buried under 4 or 5 feet of snow. And in the 1800s, when the white man first came to the area, they used that lake basin as a ranch. There's still Mice Lake, Mice Ranch, and then they have a barn. It's a lot like House on the Prairie. That's how it looks. And when you get up there, the trail might go 2-3 different ways. And I found evidence of Bigfoot over by the Mice Cabin. So we know this creature comes up by the little creeks and Truckee River tributary that runs through the area. But Sue went back to her truck, and me and the boys still had about 3 more miles to go. And so we're like, we're already up here, we might as well hike through the snow. It's very remote. In April, it can be like winter in the Sierras. You can have temperatures of in the 30s during the daytime, especially if the sun doesn't come out and there's snow on the ground. And so it was my first time going to Showers Lake. And the boys and I and our team would hike for almost 5 miles to get to this lake through snow this high. And as the day progressed and the sun came out on and off, the snow became a little soft, so we were sinking in. And I was thinking, this is great for Bigfoot tracks. Because if you want to find Bigfoot tracks, the best time is always to find them in, right before winter or right during the spring. You'll look around, you'll find tracks up in the snow going up into the mountains. First set of tracks I found, they were this big. It looked like Yeti came through there and they went right up into the high Sierras. Keep in mind, we're at 10,000 feet. And whatever these tracks were going, they were going past 10,000 feet, way up into the mountains. Towards Little Round Top Peak, Red Peak, Stevens Peak. You can see the Elephant's Back, which we just did an expedition there. A lot of peaks. Everything was snow covered. There was avalanche zones. We had to go around all the little avalanche zones because you had snow up on cliffs just hanging ready to fall and create an avalanche and come right down the canyon. So we really had to be careful on the expedition. Besides the fact that we could actually physically freeze to death. You're dealing with 40 degrees, you have 6 feet of snow on the ground. When I arrived at the Mice Cabin, it's a lot like House on the Prairie, but when I arrived there was a drift 10 feet high up on the roof. But like I said, I found tracks. I didn't think much of it, but I was like, whatever came through here was huge. I mean, these things were like 12 inches deep, this wide, and there was just one after another, like something big was just trucking to the peak. So we pursued our investigation further to Showers Lake. And again, Showers Lake sits in a lake basin. So there's a lot of water, there's the Truckee River, there's a lot of trout, and fish is a good prime source of food, there's a lot of plant life. It's enough to sustain a Bigfoot-like creature, or as I say, a tribe, because that's what they are. They're a tribe of hairy, wild men that possibly have some human DNA. I mean, lately what DNA has taught us from Bigfoot evidence is that this creature has a lot of human DNA. So even if we collect DNA and it comes back as human, you know, people are going to say, oh, that's not Bigfoot, but that's not true. This is a very human-like creature. Even if it's hairy and it's tall and it's bigger than us, it has a lot of human characteristics. It has its own language. It has ways to signal one another. They're very intelligent creatures. They probably only come out at night. And yes, they do leave tracks. So, you know, our feet were freezing. We have foot warmers. We have the proper preparations to trek through the snow. But it's still a pain in the ass. And so we made it to Showers Lake, which happened to be frozen over. Like I say, I mean, you can go in April, and a lot of the lakes still have ice or snow on them. This is the high Sierras, so it's a given that there's snow up there in April. They just had a snowstorm. Well, right when we crossed the Truckee River, we had to cross an ice sheet. Now, keep in mind, this is dangerous. If you fall through the ice and you get trapped under a moving river and there's ice all the way down, you will have no way to get out of that. You will drown. You will get sucked right under. So not only did we have to cross ice, but we also had to deal with you're in this canyon. I think it's Dixon or Davis Canyon. I'm not sure. I was looking it up yesterday. But this canyon, or this lake basin's wide. It's a few miles wide. And you have canyons that go up into the mountains on both sides. And you also have cliffs. So we tried to go around all the little areas where the snow is barely hanging. I mean, you know, because they get avalanches all the time. Now, whether Sasquatch has ever set any of these off, I don't know. They probably know the safe paths up into the canyons where they don't have to deal with avalanche zones like we had to deal with. It's very dangerous. It was my first winter expedition in the Sierras. Now, I've done some work in the winter where there's hardly any snow, and like Grover Hot Springs. 2 winters ago, they had no snow, so we hiked up there, and there was a couple patches, you know, but nothing major. But when we came up here, we didn't know what to expect, but we seen anywhere from 3 to 10 feet of snow. And so my sons and I, we hiked over the Truckee River. We weren't on any trail. We were in patches of the El Dorado Forest. The El Dorado National Forest has more Bigfoot sightings, vocalizations, and tracks than anywhere in North America, even more than Alaska. It's a very vast forest. These are grape cigars, by the way. I love smoking them when I'm doing a video. Just something to kill the time, but why I'm talking to our viewers. But it's very vast. There's a lot of cliffs. There's a lot of peaks. Even though the basin's fairly flat, the lakes are very erratic. And some of them aren't even on trails. You just kind of got to cut over to them. So when we almost reached, we got about a quarter mile from Showers Lake. And I had gotten this feeling of being kind of watched. You know, I didn't feel like I was alone, you know. We always get those feelings time to time. It's just a human reaction. And I heard bang, bang, bang on a tree. You could hear the rocks, like rocks hitting a tree. And I'm like, that's no woodpecker. You know, woodpeckers are real fast and they make this howl. It sounds kind of hollow when they hit the trunk. That kind of sound like an instrument, sort of. This was something banging a rock up against a tree. Then we heard it from behind us. Then we heard it to the east of us. To the left of us was Shower Lake. Let's say I'm standing here. You have Shower Lake, where the camera would be, was the first banging. Then to the behind us, and then to the right. And all 3 rocks were banging on the trees. They were like, one would bang on the tree, and the next one behind us would signal back. And then to the right, there would be 3 bangs. And then it would go back, you know, towards the north side. And I'm like, is something out here signaling us or warning us to get out? Is it being territorial? Is it just warning each other? Because primate, you got to consider, even though they have human DNA, they're still a type of primate too, a primate hybrid. How it happened, whether they come from space, whether they're a branch of Homo sapiens that branched off and eventually their numbers died off or became to almost extinct, I don't know. The Native Americans, again, they consider them a tribe. Therefore, they use stones and rocks and they have different forms of communication. So, the banging became closer. And then we heard, like, branches snapping. We heard foliage. And something was moving closer and closer in upon us. From 3 different ends. We couldn't, all we had to our left was the lake. And the ice was very thin. So if you stepped down on the lake, you'd fall through the ice and probably drown. Or not be able to get out and freeze to death of hypothermia. We had nowhere to go. We were surrounded on 3 sides with the lake to the west end. And you could hear from the north, the east, and the south end, 3 creatures moving towards us. And I say creatures because I could hear them talking to one another, but it was a language I didn't recognize. It was words I couldn't recognize. There was growling, there was muttering, there was, it sounded like they were keeping it really low and talking amongst each other, but it was a language I could not recognize. And I had all 3 angles, something was approaching us. And as it got to each tree, they would signal each other with stones hitting the tree with great force. So I had an idea that maybe something of Sasquatch or Bigfoot origins was nearby. But anyhow, 3 creatures moved in close. We couldn't even see them. That's how elusive they were. I knew for a fact that something was coming towards us. We heard, this is what we kind of heard. We heard gorilla-like sounds, growling, some language being spoken between themselves. I could not make it out, but it was something I've never heard in my entire life. I'm running 2 cameras. I got a camera to the north and a camera to the east. Because I'm hoping out of the clearing or out of the forest, there's patches of forest of the El Dorado, something would come out. Nothing came out. But my son, he's a skeptic. He don't believe in Bigfoot. And he said, I heard a woodpecker today. He said, but this was no woodpecker. And the kids, they heard the growling sounds. They heard, it sounded like a mountain gorilla, a giant mountain gorilla. It was making primate-like sounds, but it was also growling. It was also snarling. It was mad. And I was wondering, is it mad because we're in its territory, because we're looking for tracks? What's the deal? Well, my son's feet were getting frostbitten, so we found a dry patch of land near Showers Lake. And we sat down and he took his shoes off. And I gave him some foot warmers and his socks dried out. Well, all of a sudden we look and there's these dark clouds rolling in. We're almost at 10,000 feet. So the clouds are like 25 feet off the ground. There's like fog rolling in. We had lunch on the lake. And the fog starts rolling in, the clouds start rolling in, the winds are picking up, it's starting to get stormy out. And I had left a banana at over at Mice Lake or Mice Cabin, behind the cabin. Because I know that if you were a primate or had primate DNA, apples, fruits, sweet bananas, things of that sort would attract you. Especially if you had good senses. You would know, hey, there's some food in the area. So, we're sitting there, for 45 minutes eating our lunch at Showers Lake. And all of a sudden a storm comes rolling in. We're like, we got to get out of here. We packed up our gear, put on our, my son put on his shoes, packed all our stuff up. And we were wondering, where did these creatures go? Because as fast as they came in towards us, they were gone. And I thought about it for a while, and I said, were they trying to scare us out of the area? Or were they trying to warn us because there was a storm coming? A very bad storm. When we started to leave and head south to head towards Red Peak to climb over to get back to the Jeep, we got in the middle of the storm. We barely escaped it. We were on the edge of it going south the whole time. And the clouds, there was fog everywhere, dark clouds swirling. It was snowing, sleeting. There was ice coming down, wet rain, wet, cold rain. It was getting really bad. Especially the wet rain hitting them avalanche zones. Those avalanches could travel a mile down the canyon or cliff. So we had to kind of go safe around and hope that no avalanches occurred. Well, when I left Showers Lake, I had found a fresh Bigfoot track, full toes, and it was like something stepped down twice, because it made 4 toe impressions, 4, and then there was another set of 3 toe impressions forward, almost like it stepped up and down, and then put its foot, and then it put its foot like this again. So it stepped down twice. It was a lone track. It was all by itself. In the area we heard the tree banging in the south. We found it not too far from a little patch of woods. And it was a track about 14 inches, a little wider than a human foot, and there was toes in it. And you'd have to be crazy to walk barefoot through the snow there. You would get frostbite. You would lose your toes. It gets very cold in the high Sierras. So the track, the giant tracks going up into the high Sierras, and then the tree banging and some unspoken language and primate-like sounds confirmed to me that these creatures probably heavily dwell this area because there's no humans to interrupt the flow of life. And they're able to thrive and team and survive because of that reason. Because who's going to go through 8 to 10 feet of snow into the high Sierras and risk dying in an avalanche? However, in this basin, all winter long, there are deer. There's access to some of the creeks exposed or Truckee River so they can get to water. They can climb right back up into the high Sierras and never be seen again. And so they can come down. And in the spring and the summer, when all the snow thaws, there's expanse meadows with wildflowers and deer grazing. A lot of different tributaries and creeks. There's fish, there's berries, there's a lot to sustain a creature like Sasquatch, per se. So anyways, I guess the reason for my video is kind of like an epilogue to kind of introduce you to Showers Lake and try to explain to people that, this lake basin has multiple bodies of water. Anywhere from 6 to 8 bodies of water. You have a few small ponds too. And you have patches of woods. You have a couple canyons and cliffs and peaks. 360 degrees. So whatever could come down for a drink of water, maybe steal some berries, a deer, who knows, and go right back up into the high Sierras. No trail, nothing. There's no way up into those areas unless you just truck it hard. And you're like me, I go off beat, I leave the trail and I go off into the wilderness and I rock climb and I go up into peaks and climb the side of peaks and rock faces, and I go to a lot of hidden areas because in order to find the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, you kind of got to be like a Bigfoot. You kind of got to think like him. Where would I go if I was Bigfoot? Would I go up that narrow canyon up on top and over the peak? So we're at the right place at the right time. Obviously, there's no humans. There's a lot of snow. You have avalanche zones. The snow's getting ready to thaw. Therefore, Bigfoot come down to lower elevations. Actually, I'm starting to find out they stay in the winter at lower elevations because at higher elevations, the winds are 80 miles an hour. It's below zero. But this basin warms up during the day, even if there's snow. I mean, like, you'll see deer grazing in the spring when the snow starts to melt, and wildflowers, and a lot of different types of brush that grow that probably a primate could eat if he had to survive, you know. But it was a terrifying experience. It was like 3 minutes of terror. I mean, imagine being surrounded on all sides by you could hear them coming towards you. You could hear the brush breaking. You could hear growling. You could hear gorilla-like sounds like, you know, you could hear that. And you could hear bang, 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 something big and strong just banging on the tree. And from all different ends, but signaling one another, never doing it all at once. One would do it, would tree bang, and then another one would do it, and another one would do it. And I kind of figured either they were trying to scare us out because they were trying to warn us a storm was coming. Because that storm could have killed us. We could have fell through the Truckee River and drowned. We could have went too far on the lakeshore and onto the ice and fell through the ice. We could have hit, there was at least 4 or 5 different areas where the snow was about to fall into the canyon. Avalanche zones. So it comes down to this. Is Bigfoot friend? Or is Bigfoot foe? You tell me. Because, you know, with the storm and the avalanche zones and the lack of human beings, because there's not a lot of humans, like I said, it's very dangerous. There are a few people who cross-country ski and snowshoe, and every year people die in avalanches, get caught in storms, they freeze to death, like the couple at Burnside Lake. No snow, it was mild, they got their truck stuck. Husband takes off, it starts, a freak storm comes in. Husband takes off. Freezes to death. Only 6-7 miles of the highway. He only made it 3 and froze to death. The woman huddled in a tree, wrapped toilet paper around herself, had, like, they didn't even really bring food. I always bring water and food and things in my truck, and we carry backpacks full of survival gear, so if we had to spend, let's say, a few hours up in a storm, we could wait it out. We could get through it. But it was very cold from what I remember. And the track I found was right on the south side where we heard the tree banging. It left the track. So something really came close to us at Showers Lake. And I felt that it was necessary to do this paranormal video to talk about those experiences because I haven't really been able to discuss them thoroughly with anybody. Sue went back to the truck, so she entirely missed her first actual Bigfoot experience. And it was very odd because, you know, where the tree banging was from, you had a patch of maybe 20, 30 trees, a patch of 20, 30 trees. And these creatures were hiding in these little patches of woods, using a rock probably in these trees, and they were banging on them, trying to get our attention. And when they got close enough, you could hear them talking amongst each other. But it was a language I didn't recognize. So, do I feel that there are Bigfoot living or thriving in the Showers Lake Basin? Yes, I do. It's south of Lake Tahoe. It's not far from the Desolation Wilderness, the Granite Chief Wilderness. The basin sits, it's a few miles wide, and it's like 10 miles long, and it's full of lakes and patches of woods, and there's different ways to go up in the mountains, so it's very vast. Even though there's a lot of hikers in the spring and summer, in the wintertime there's nobody up there. And so they can come down and do their thing. So they probably were just as surprised as we were surprised when we came in there. We probably scared what was ever back there at the time. And they were warning each other, or trying to warn us, get out, there's a storm coming. There's, it's not safe back here. So is Bigfoot friend or foe? I don't know. I don't know in this scenario if this creature was trying to save us, help us, scare us, was being territorial. But I've been studying these creatures. I'm finding out that there's certain areas of the Sierras that seem to be higher in Bigfoot activity where these creatures may dwell. There's a lot of peaks with hidden caves. There's a lot of areas where in the high Sierras where man's never gone. They don't call it the Sierra Triangle for nothing. The triangle's known for its UFOs and Bigfoot activity. And of course, in prehistoric times, supposedly the Native Americans went up against these creatures. It was called the Bigfoot Wars in the Sierras. And it kind of reminded me that, the reason why we don't see these creatures often is because in a lake basin with 1,000 areas to hide, or 1,000,000 areas where man hasn't been, who knows what kind of wild man or wild creature or cryptid is living off in this lake basin, or just on the other side of the ridge, or on the other side of those cliffs. And maybe it comes down at night, gets some berries, gathers some fish, maybe takes a deer or two. And so, yes, there is enough to substantiate the fact that this creature could survive. There's enough evidence to show that it could thrive back here. Wherever there's a lot of lakes and water, like the Desolation Wilderness, a lot of lakes and water, high in Bigfoot sightings. A lot of people find tracks. I get reports in all the time, and people tell me, hey, I've been to Showers Lake. I've seen tracks before. All the places that I go, I've had people write me and say, I've seen some strange tracks. So we're right on the money. Some areas are migration paths that we do expeditions at where Bigfoot will just come through. But I honestly think that this area between Red Peak, Echo Summit, Little Round Top Peak, that area in there seems to be very high with Bigfoot activity. And, it might be the world's most elusive cryptid, but it does leave things behind, like tracks and weird vocalizations and primate activity like banging on the trees, and they even build dens. I recently found a Bigfoot encampment, which I'm going to do a whole separate video about. But we're almost done with this area. We've worked with Mice Lake. Like I said, there's an old cattle ranch. The Mice family used to live there. It was like House on the Prairie. They grew vegetables, they hunted deer and jackrabbits, they fished on the creek behind their house, they raised cattle. On occasion they would slaughter one of the cattle and, eat the beef, and you have a few chickens, and, so they were able to sustain themselves in the 1800s back here. But they were there was only 2 or 3 ranches up in this basin area. And I visited in Luther Pass one of the ranches, and you can go on our site and check out Lake Dardanelles, and we have a special section with Luther Ranch. You can go to our site and check out Mice Lake, and you can see the Mice Lake Ranch. You can also check out the Showers Lake update. We have photos of the Mice Ranch. We have a lot of scenic pics, a lot of different things, and video evidence, photo evidence of the tracks, and all these different things. And my plan was to do 2 expeditions for every lake in this lake basin. I mean, you're talking 1,000, 1,500 feet. You got to climb over the ridge and down into this basin, and then you're surrounded by the high Sierras, which stay snow-capped most of the year. So there's a lot of areas that are hidden here. But I would love to go back to Mice Lake, Round Lake. I'd like to find the 4 lakes, which is not even on any trail. Go back to Showers Lake when there's no snow or ice. Maybe check the shoreline for tracks, the mud. And of course, in a couple weeks, we're going to be doing Scotts Lake. which is also in that basin, but it's on the east end. It's east of Showers Lake. Instead, you got to the west Showers Lake, and to the east Scotts Lake, and to the southeast you have Round Lake, and then to the south you have Mice Lake. And then in the middle you got 4 lakes. A lot of lakes. Life is teeming and thriving here. I don't know what we experienced that day, but I know the tracks we found were real. The vocalizations, the banging, all this other weird things that happen. It's just, it's plausible to say, in theory, that a creature like this exists up in the Sierras, high up in those mountains. And you could spend years going in those mountains and realize that there might be dozens of new animal, insect, and plant species that have never even been discovered. It's like the Amazon jungle. It's like Borneo, or it's just every day in the world new species are being discovered. So it's safe to say maybe Bigfoot or a creature like this, North America's great ape, does exist. And it's intelligent enough to survive. Maybe it only surveys the wilderness. Maybe they don't even come from here. Maybe they come from the stars. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. If we did, it would make the paranormal very boring, obviously. But it was an intense experience. Like I said, my hairs were standing up on my neck. It was 2-3 minutes of fear. We were standing in one spot in silence, being approached by 3 creatures that we could not see but we could hear, that were talking and breaking branches and tree banging and making primate-like noises. So it was a moment in time where I was holding the camera and I expected to see whatever it was in that patch of woods come right out and get Bigfoot on film. And I never seen a thing. I found the tracks, I found the evidence, but I did not see this creature. And I don't know why. I don't know if it has the capability to blend in with its surroundings, or maybe they climb up in the trees high enough where you don't see them. But we never seen a thing. But that day, my son being a skeptic, that day he was a believer. And he was pretty, on the edge after that experience. Because we heard a woodpecker later, and we were like, wow, what a difference between the woodpecker and then the 3 slow bangs. And then the vocalizations. So we were not alone at Showers Lake. It was mid-April. It was still winter in the high Sierras. The lakes were frozen over. There was no sign of humans. Because then again, you could go into the Sierra mountain range. You could step 100 feet off the trail, a mile off the trail, and chances are no humans ever been there. But a Bigfoot has. Guaranteed. Anyways, this is Lord Rick of the Paranormal and Ghost Society giving you this epilogue on Showers Lake. Make sure you check Showers Lake in our investigation archives at www.paranormalghostsociety.org, so you can see the evidence for yourself, see the videos, see the pictures. That was one of my first major winter expeditions, and I'm starting to find out that when you go off into the wilderness in the wintertime, you're more likely to find Sasquatch evidence, possibly even see this creature. Because all winter long, December, January, February, March, there are no humans hiking up there. There's nobody camping. Very little human activity. And then these creatures come down into the lake basin to get their food, their water, their supplies. And they might even, maybe they sleep up in a tree all day long. But they continue to thrive. And when you get close, they vocalize with one another. They bang on trees. We didn't have no stones thrown at us, but that the banana I threw out there attracted them. And then the fact is there was a storm coming in. So it was a very active Bigfoot expedition and a very rewarding one. It was hard trekking through 10 miles of snow. That's what we did. 10 miles of trekking through snow. And the rewards outweighed all the difficulties. in the sense that we came back with Bigfoot evidence and we had a Bigfoot encounter, a very close encounter with possibly 3 of these creatures, 3 of them. So I just kind of want to, before I put my YouTube videos of Showers Lake up, I just kind of wanted to let people know. I mean, what would you do if you were in the middle of the Sierras, in the middle of the wilderness? You're not on any trail. You're in the El Dorado forest. No trail. You're out there by ponds and lakes and streams. There's no sign of human activity that's been there. And you're just standing there, and all of a sudden, three large creatures come crashing through the forest. And they're only like 100 feet away, but you can't see them. And they're banging on trees, and they're talking some language you don't even know. So I consider these creatures to be more like a tribe. Hunters, gatherers of food, maybe they make some stone weapons, things of that sort. They are very powerful, so I'm sure that they could go up, run up to a deer and maybe break its neck and kill it in an instant. I mean, something that's maybe 10 feet tall, 800 pounds, and 15 times stronger than me could literally, push an entire pine tree down. We're talking a powerful creature. Powerful enough to hunt and gather. And so these creatures seem to be attracted to in areas that are lush, have a lot of meadows and lakes, and a lot of little areas that go up where humans can't get to, like alongside cliffs and things, where there's volcanic fissures and caves and smaller dens where they might live, or per se hide and remain elusive from many human beings. I believe the Showers Lake area is a Bigfoot hotspot, and there's a few of them in that area. Red Lake, Red Peak, Devil's Ladder area. I've gotten UFO pictures. I've gotten Bigfoot tracks. So on the other side of Red Peak. And I've also got Bigfoot tracks on both sides of Red Peak. So that area is a hot zone. There's Stevens Peak. That's some of the highest mountains in the Carson Pass. That's the heart of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. So of course there's going to be Sasquatch. But up the road there's Bear Creek Reservoir, or Bear River Reservoir. A lot of Bigfoot up there. Desolation Wilderness is nearby. It's very much a Bigfoot hot zone. And so you have all these areas surrounding this basin that are known for its Bigfoot. As you go from the El Dorado Wilderness or El Dorado National Forest into the Muckalumne Wilderness, into the Carson Iceberg Wilderness, and then you go north into the Desolation Wilderness, the Granite Chief Wilderness, the Tahoe National Forest, which surrounds Lake Tahoe, and in it you can go up to the Carson Range across. If you take the basin and you go east, it'll take you right into the Carson Range, which we've done Genoa Peak, Job's Peak, and we've gotten lots of Bigfoot evidence up there, even some DNA evidence. So I believe that this creature thrives just in that general region, which is probably about, 50 square miles. But on a good day, if you're really not on the trail and you're off beat, you're going to find something. And that's what happened. Me and the boys, we were not on any trail or anything. It was very secluded and off beat. We just happened to stumble upon something that we were not supposed to be involved with. We were not on any trail. And that's why we found what we did and heard what we did and seen what we did. Like the tracks. Because we were somewhere we were not supposed to be. We were not on any major skiing route or hiking path. There was snow. There was no path. We just had to head northwest and hopefully get lucky and hit the lake. And when we did, it was frozen. But we also hit some patches of woods that no humans walk through. Because it's not on a path and you could get lost. It's a few miles wide. And there's patches of woods. And if you go in, you could end up at the wrong lake, or the wrong creek, or the wrong waterfall, or the wrong camp zone you want to camp at. Because there's multiple lakes, multiple patches of woods, and that's what happened. We hit an area that humans hadn't really been, an untouched area, and we stumbled across this amazing discovery. So this is your founder, Lord Rick, saying peace to my viewers. I'm out of here. I'm just giving you a little information on Showers Lake. I'm the founder, the author, the producer, and the talk show host of the Paranormal Ghost Society and Angel of the Night Radio. I've also written The Underworld Among Us and Strange Kanzua on my Bigfoot expeditions up in the Appalachian Mountains. And I'm also the author of our site. And so if you check out Showers Lake, you can read the reports, see the evidence, see the history of the area, the seclusion, the winterscapes, the nature, and you can kind of see that if you were one of these creatures, wouldn't you dine at Showers Lake? Think about it. It's the middle of the wilderness. Vastness, nothingness, places no human's ever been. Don't you think something that we haven't discovered, something cryptid, could be lurking back there? I do. Peace.